Hello, Forrest, and Happy New Year. Imagine my surprise last month when you, out of the blue, sent me an email in which you mentioned that Cynthia was in the process of doing a review of Educating Ardi, and that you were offering me the opportunity to do the same thing here on the learning curve. As much as I was interested in getting a copy of the book to see what was inside, as interested as I was in this, I felt that I couldn't fairly accept your offer. The reason being is that one of the important aspects of this learning curve project for me was the discipline and the focus for the channel. That the focus should not be so much concerned with small points or small details, but to try to look at the big picture and the deep picture underlying issues surrounding the chase, things that might be of interest to searchers, no matter where they might be searching, as well as to you. And as much as I really wanted to accept, I had to refuse, and I did. But then, thinking about that afterwards, I began to suspect a few things. One was that maybe you knew more about what you were doing in making this offer than I did, and second, that certainly there must be some things, that I could say about this book and this project of yours that would relate back to the chase. For me, if the topic doesn't relate to the chase, it's not something that I feel that I should be covering. There are plenty of other channels out there and blogs out there that do that job very well. So I sent you a follow-up email saying, okay, Forrest, I'll do it. And I'm happy to say that the copy you sent me has arrived in very good condition. I probably would have been able to make this video sooner if I had checked my mailbox a little more frequently. I didn't expect that it would fit, but somehow they made it fit without damaging it. This is the first time that I've made a video where the topic was suggested by you. In case anybody is wondering, up until now, I have always been in a position to say that the topics I've chosen to do have been without any influence by you, until now. Even though you've suggested the topic, you haven't suggested in any way at all what you expected me to say or not say about it. So the opinion that I'm going to give you and the insights that I have for you are entirely my own. But I should warn you that things might turn out a little differently than what you might expect from a typical book review. And forgive me for that in advance. Okay, so about the book, Educating Ardi. So first of all, Cynthia has already put out an excellent video about this, where she reads the story with you and shows the pictures, all or I think all or almost all of the pictures. So I think that the search community already has a pretty good idea of what's inside the book, thanks to Cynthia and her overall impression. So this is, of course, excellent, and I don't want to simply repeat the good work that Cynthia has done. But I will give a few of my impressions. So first of all, the illustrations are absolutely fabulous. So impressive. The overall tone, I would guess, seems to be watercolors. It has a soft look to it, spooky and suggestive, and the pictures are very layered as well. There are things lurking in the backgrounds of each picture, in each story. I don't know if you can see this, how it seems to have been drawn in various layers. And if you look carefully through many of the illustrations, you see little tiny things hidden here and there, like little birds or butterflies or something in the background. So there are definitely rewards to be had by spending time and looking through the various illustrations. And perhaps my favorite is the one here on this page. This part in the story where you and Ardi have returned from your trip, and Ardi is asking her mom to help get you out of the car. So if you look even in the background here with the car in the picture, there are hints of structures and buildings, and that can be very faintly seen in the background. So definitely a fun and visually impressive book. Forrest, you have good friends, you know, to imagine, you know, a book that is not even going to be sold commercially, which is only printed in 100 copies, and for you to be able to get an illustrator, I think this is Susan Caldwell, is that right? Who could be so engaged in this work to have done such fabulous artwork. I mean, this is what you would expect of an award-winning children's book. So it's good to have good friends who are happy to do things for you. And I also thought, you know, that Ardi herself was a good sport in this. The pictures of her are expressive, and they fit the story element perfectly. And so for somebody that young to have that amount of patience in giving the right expressions and the right poses for the story, I thought was nice to see. Now, as far as the story itself goes, you credit Ardi as a co-author, but looking at the writing style, it's certainly your own style throughout, for both the portions that Ardi says and the portions that you say, or that you write. So I'd be interested to know whether or not she suggested any of the elements of the stories, to what extent the story has been shaped by Ardi. Okay, so the plot of the story, as Cynthia, you know, has shown us from the readings, is essentially the passing of wisdom down through the generations, from you across 3 generations down to Ardi, and with some twists and surprises towards the end, where you find yourself as a character in the story, learning some things that you did not expect, and for Ardi to have taken good control of the situation by the end. So the character as portrayed, you know, it's hard to say, do you portray yourself in the book? Or anyway, the character that we see of you in the book is reassuring, protective, instructive about the things to be found in nature, in the mountains, that you're eager to teach, eager to share, eager to help her in her learning and her discovery and her appreciation of nature. Ardi, for her part, is a little nervous at first, but overall curious and willing and interested. And towards the end, when you have your misadventures with the porcupine and with the hornets and with the skunk, she shows herself to be competent and very proactive in preparing for the trip and in how to handle these crises as they come up. She asks herself whether she should be afraid, accepts your guidance and your reassurance, and then eventually decides that she is not, even to the point of posing a bit of a problem for you at the end, wanting to see or expecting to see bear cubs the next time she goes out. It is quite something, I think, that you've done for her. You've given her, in creating a book like this, her and the other members of your family, something that they'll remember for a lifetime. It is an exceptional thing to be able to have as you know, memories of her great-grandpa throughout her life, and not just her, but I'm sure for your grandchildren as well, and other great-grandchildren to come. But the question I'm sure that other people who would be watching this video would be wondering is, what relevance might this have to the chase for your treasure? Well, that's the big question, right? It's the question I think that most people out there in the search community are, you know, looking for an answer to. So the easy answer to this, as to how relevant it is to the chase, and the tempting answer is to say that it's not. There doesn't seem to be anything in the story at all, nothing in the illustrations at all, that to me can be thought of as any explicit, direct hint about the treasure hunt. I don't think that there's any words or any sentences or any detail in any of the images that a searcher needs to know that could possibly give them a benefit in that way. But in the book, in Educating Ardi, I think there is a lesson for us as searchers in any way. Okay, so to say what I mean about this, let's put this work of yours in the context of your other projects and other life experiences and see where it fits. So, Forrest, my impression of you has always been that of somebody who is a lifelong and self-taught learner, somebody who has followed your own interests and educated yourself in order to deal with or to explore or to gain enjoyment out of whatever it is that you've set your mind to. And this spirit or attitude of doing things for yourself, learning for yourself, teaching yourself what you need to know, you've taken advantage of this in building up the things which were important to you in your younger and middle years. So these include the various skills that you've had, not just in terms of, you know, fishing when you were young, or when as a fighter pilot, or in the military in your first career, but you know, even the skills afterwards, like bronze casting and the like, learning the business of art, in your gathering your collections, running your business, in fostering and developing the many relationships that you've had with clients, with artists, and the like, and in setting up essentially a secure and prosperous life for yourself. This was something that you put your learning skills and your self-taught ways of gaining insights. You've put all of this into securing yourself a comfortable, successful, happy, and satisfying life. Just like you were saying in your books, this was a form of grabbing every banana, of collecting and gathering and taking what you could from life. And this, as far as we as searchers can see, was growing fantastically successfully and fantastically well until at the age of 58, the floor fell out from under you with your cancer diagnosis, with the poor prognosis that you were given, that whole phase of your life leading up to that suddenly took a hard left turn. In coping with this diagnosis and coping with this crisis, you started to question, as far as I can tell, the value of much of which you had achieved. In this crisis, after going through the shock, the denial, what I get from your own stories, from the Ralph Lauren incident, where you started to think that you're going to, who says that we can't take it with us? You seem to have used that crisis to bring yourself to a point where you entered a form of defiance. You didn't take it well, I would say. So you first say in your book that you hatched this plan to take some of your best treasures to a special spot, throw your body down on it, take your own life as your father did, and leave your bones there for other people to find. This, I think, was a form of bargain of sorts, or an empty bargain, if you will, insisting on a way in which you could try to avoid the whole harsh, horrible reality of what you saw your fate to be, to say, well, at least you can do something, act out in a way, take some control over a situation where life has basically threatened to take away everything that it is that you had built up. To me, this plan was a kind of salvaging, to take what you could, to get whatever satisfaction you could in this very difficult situation. And then all of this, of course, as you said, all your plans fell apart when you got better. But even though you did recover from this whole crisis, both through the crisis itself and afterwards, must have led to some important form of self-evaluation, or an accounting, or a stock-taking, much like what you must have done after your near-death experiences in Vietnam and Laos that led you to retire from the military and to take a whole different direction in life, to take your watch and toss it into the middle of a field and start over. But this time, it led to another revaluing of your life, your goals, your objectives, and your sense of time and what to do with it. So you went and you sold your business so that you could indulge your interests more. So, for example, your writing, your purchase of San Lazaro, and your satisfying your interest in the archaeology and anthropology of the region. You started at this point, I think, where starting is not the right word. I would say at this point you shifted more from somebody who was learning in order to accomplish your goals, to someone who was learning for your own satisfaction. And also shifting more from just somebody who was learning for advantage to somebody who is willing to teach as a way of giving back. You had two important examples in your life that you acknowledge in The Thrill of the Chase. One was Eric Sloan, and the other was your father. And from these are two people in your life who were teachers for you. So Eric Sloan gave you a gift of appreciation and helped you to see life and art through the eye of an artist. Your father gave you the gift of discovery. He awoke your appreciation of nature. He taught you how to fish. He helped you to find your first arrowhead. He gave you a love of collecting and history. And as well, both of your teachers gave you lessons about life, what is important, and the sense of meeting the end of life on your own terms. So your father, with his defiance of his condition, his unwillingness to let the disease he had rob him of his dignity, and for Eric Sloan to continue to write and to give his perspectives and his memoirs right up until the time he passed away at 80. So during this period, which of course you must not have known how long it would last, and that you would still be here at the age of almost 90. Throughout this very long time, I don't think you were taking anything for granted anymore. That you had a list of things that you were interested in, things that you wanted to accomplish, that you had a long, long bucket list of things that you would do with your time if you happened to have it back, and you were granted it. So this eventually led us to the chase itself, okay? So, and it also led us to this book, Educating Ardi, in the same way. And there are some parallels between The Thrill of the Chase and Educating Ardi in terms of this perspective, this need to give back, this need to explore and indulge your bucket list. Okay, so in Educating Ardi, you are playing the role that your father did when he taught you to fish, when he helped you find your own your first arrowhead. You are introducing your great-granddaughter to the first steps to a lifetime of enjoyment and, most importantly, self-reliance in being able to follow up one's interests and one's dreams. So it is a book about education. It is a book about giving back, and it's a book about handing wisdom down through the generations, much like what your father did for you, and also what Eric Sloan did to you, being a full generation ahead of you in life and in art. So in what your book, Educating Ardi, says to me at least is how you have embraced the role of educator. Not just, although you had written a couple of books before your cancer diagnosis, those two books, what were the names again? There was the Joseph Henry Sharp book, Beat of the Drum and the Whoop of the Dance in '83. And before that, you had a book of The African Animals of W.R. Lee from 1980. These are both related to your business as an art dealer, and they help to. I would say that they satisfy two things simultaneously: your interest in the art, your interest, especially with the later one on Joseph Henry Sharp, your interest in the West and the cultures of the West. But also they were a help to your business to be able to bring these artists to your attention as a way of fostering interest and excitement in artists and for your gallery. But since then, after your cancer diagnosis and your recovery, you turned to writing more books that were not necessarily driven by any business interest, because at that point you had already sold your interest. These were things that were done clearly, at least to observers such as us. They were clearly there for your self-satisfaction, for your own personal satisfaction. So I think then, in your writing and in your hobbies and in your great project, the thrill of the chase and the treasure hunt, you have embraced the role of educator as well as learner. Now, educators cannot be fully satisfied with what they've discovered and what they've learned and what they know until they've passed it on. It's like when you see a movie that you absolutely love and you go to the theater and watch it alone. There's some types of people, myself included, who enjoy it best when there's somebody to share it with. Now, educating Ardi should remind us as searchers that you would not be satisfied with your design for the treasure hunt, for the chase, unless it too led everyone to some degree of understanding, appreciation, enlightenment, of a sharing of appreciation of what it is that you've come to love in your life. And for most of us searchers, for the majority of us, this would extend to sort of like a hands-on appreciation of the natural beauty of the Rocky Mountains and the experiences to be had there, and as well as the satisfaction of tackling a major challenge in one's life. It's about self-worth, and it's about growth. These are the things that we can learn from this. These are the things that you've experienced from your projects and your life experiences. But there's something more that I think that is there for us, because this does not in itself take into account the solution that you must have designed. This experience is open to all searchers that I've mentioned before. But for the eventual finder, we can only imagine the expectations that you must have for the finder. My feeling is that for consistency, if nothing else, these expectations must be reflected in the solution to your puzzle itself, that you would have designed it in a way that would be satisfying to you. And as this book shows, what satisfies you at this stage in your life, triggered by your cancer diagnosis, is that the solve must be a learning process at many levels, and not just an answer to a riddle or a puzzle in the conventional sense, like you rearrange these letters and it spells this, and you get the reward because you rearrange the letters and you manage to get it to spell this, and then you go there and you get the treasure for it. It's not a game it's not a game with only one simple aspect to it. I think it has to be a learning process at many levels. So if your solve is in the desert, so to speak, in a intellectual, psychological, or emotional desert, if it's incapable of bringing you insights, if it's incapable of giving you satisfaction at a very deep, shall we say, artistic level, then I think we need to get new solves. I think what you have placed for us in this challenge, it's not enough for us to have found the treasure. It's for us to have come to some sort of spot, thinking or understanding, where we can gain the same sorts of perspectives and appreciations that you have in meeting the crises in your own life. Just a little postscript here for other viewers who might be watching. You might be wondering whether there's any messages in this book that Forrest left for me that could give me an advantage over other people. Well, I will share with you what Forrest drew in the book. Ordinarily, I wouldn't think to do this, but just for the sake of full disclosure, here it is. Now, if there's a secret message for me here, it must be that I must be rushing to disaster with no treasure chest in sight. And this figure over here looks very much the same as what Forrest drew in Cynthia's own copy of her book. So it's maybe Forrest is saying that Cynthia is watching what I'm doing and does not approve. I don't know. But if this is supposed to help me, Forrest, I can't see how. Thank you very much anyway. Thanks again.